Hello, my loves. I have a hot topic to talk to you about today, which is Russia versus the Ukraine, the symbology of it, and then also, are you being an energetic accomplice or a spiritual first responder? All right, let's get into it. So, first, I want to preface this whole video with the following disclosure. This may have some emotional triggers, and for some of you, it's going to kind of feel like, when a dog first sees his reflection in a mirror and they don't realize it's their own reflection, so they bark. So, I'm not saying any of what I'm going to say in this video to trigger you or to activate you in any way. My job is just to channel a message and to shed light on the symbology of the global crises that we've been living through, and also to bring awareness to what is the highest and most valuable way that you can participate and stay in your power zone. Because even if you feel like you're a goldfish in an ocean and you don't feel valuable or seen or heard, you're still here for a reason. You are needed at this time. If you weren't, I promise you would have been born at another time. So thank you for being here in body on this beautiful spinning globe of the blue and white or blue and green ball. And also thank you for watching, for sharing, and for liking, because it tells the algorithm that this video needs to be seen so that others can also see it from a bird's eye view perspective. Now, for a moment, just think of perspective. When you walk up to a house, say you were going to buy a new house, and the front of the house, gorgeous, right? But you can't see the roof, and you also can't see the other three sides. And so what this video is focusing on is showing you the rest of the picture without creating more overwhelm or stress in your mind. I have on previous videos talked about, how to set goals and to anticipate making it through phase 2. And I'm going to go over that really quickly. And if you want to hear it in depth, go onto, I have another video. I believe it's called 3 Stages of Creating Miracles and Breakthrough. I'll post the link in the description below in case you want to check it out. But the reason I bring that up is because globally, we're in a phase 2 era right now. Briefly, what I explained was when we in our personal lives or global lives, we set goals. We ask for something new to manifest. What happens is in stage 1, we're all excited. We have anticipation and we're all, buzzing because we can feel how amazing it's going to feel. And then stage 2 hits. Everything that doesn't support the upgrade that we're asking for gets shaken up and broken down because it would hold you back. And you wouldn't be able to be that newer, evolved version of you with the same limiting beliefs. So they have to go, which means that the universe will lovingly bring to your attention all that doesn't align and support that new way of being. It shows up in experiences or relationships, etc. And this occurs to get your attention, to heal, and to let go what will not benefit you in your next phase. And in that video, I think I mentioned the analogy about how when we're carrying too much luggage, say you're going on a trip, and you have to leave a few items behind because otherwise your luggage would be charged extra because of the extra energy that it would take to lug it around. So if you're going on an adventure, you want to pack a little bit lightly. And that's what life is, an adventure. So we need to leave behind some of the things to lighten the load. And that's what's happening globally. We're in phase 2. We have globally asked for a new way of life. We've asked for a life that includes more freedom, more joy, collaboration. And so the Aquarian Age is here. Welcome. It's very feminine. It's focused on community, on being creative, on having free will and the freedom to express ourselves without feeling judged or ostracized or rejected or abandoned or shunned, right? We are ushering in a time of free choice, and we're seeing this show up everywhere. People want to be free to choose their sexual orientation, their spouses, to vaccinate or not, to mask or not. Globally, we are not saying that this doesn't work for us, but more importantly, we're saying we want our choices to be honored and respected. Think of Black Lives Matter or Orange Shirt Day for the Aboriginals in Canada. We all want to be free to be ourselves, to express ourselves in our own unique way without being penalized. We're transitioning out of the Piscean age, which was about control and hierarchy and up-down structures, always focused on using force and manipulation to get your own way. Very masculine energies. And I've also made a video about this, how to thrive in the Aquarian Age, I believe it's called. I'll also add that link in the description as well. But the point is, you can see that these two energies, they don't match up, right? So one of them has to go. One is about freedom of self and self-expression, and the other is about control, suppression, and oppression. They just don't align or jive very well. So because we're aligning and calling in new, more free-flowing energy, the other structures are beginning to crumble. Think of this like a building where the foundation is being eroded. So the whole building ends up imploding on itself because it is no longer using that as the support system. The old foundation that is eroding is things like the trust in the government, hoping that they have the highest intentions for people of that country. And we're seeing this big time in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, US, where there's huge protests saying this has gone too far. It's crushing our economy. We want freedom to choose. And we need to turn this around before there's nothing left of our beautiful country that our vets have fought for. And then up here in Canada, we have our Prime Minister, Trudeau, who's spitting out deception and tried to bring in an emergency order to freeze people's bank accounts who donated to protests, so that people are now awakening to the control mechanisms that the government can and obviously will use to overpower the people, not to support what's in the best interests of the country or of the people who live in that country. And we're really beginning to see the hidden agendas being exposed with mainstream media not covering, any of the convoys or the protests until they had a way to spin it with a negative narrative. If it wasn't for all the social media, people wouldn't have been able to, actually know what's going on in Ottawa. That the truckers were actually cleaning up the litter, feeding the homeless, and really just having fun Canadian style with lots of street hockey. But that's far from the mainstream narrative media, what was instructed to project. So this is not the first time either, guys. We know this. The mainstream media has been slowly integrating more of an elusive story. For example, my mom lives in Israel, and there's many times when the media has shown here bombings and tension, and it's really not as bad as they project. I'll message her, and Israel's like, you can drive from one side to the other in a few hours. So when there's bombing and there's tension. But what that doesn't show us is that there's many countries where women and children are being raped and used in slavery. We never hear about that crisis. Or how many people committed suicide because of the mental health crisis of COVID isolation protocols that were created, right? I remember in December when I heard them announce tighter restrictions right before Christmas last year, and I just wept for all the people who this would affect. The aloneness is not what we needed. We're social beings. We're not meant to isolate. It was straight out of the Hitler regime. Listen, I'm German. And my mom, as I said, lives in Israel and practices as a Jew. So I'm not calling out any culture, race, or religion here, saying that one is better than the other. But what we went through was a replay of the Nazi era, where you had to be injected to be able to function in society. Masks were used to demoralize, right? And so we see all these kinds of things happening, social distancing and isolating to really cause people to feel powerless and alone. And then for those who don't vaccinate, you had to get your papers to be able to enter restaurants, sports events, or seniors' facilities. You couldn't have, get-togethers with family. You were limited to funerals and weddings of who could be in person to, say their goodbyes or say their congratulations. And to top it all off, our Prime Minister quoted him directly on one occasion, and then another time indicates that anyone who is asking for anything other than what his agenda is part of a fringe minority with unacceptable views. Seriously, who does that sound like? Saying that the minority has unacceptable views. Yes, So it all came out though, so that we can heal it collectively in our psychic consciousness. Because guys, we are only a few generations removed from that time. So it still lives out in our psychic and energetic bodies. These fears and shame are being passed on from one generation to the next. And it's coming up again so we can heal it, so our following generations can be fully integrated, whole, and not continue to relive the stored trauma that's continually being cleverly and strategically reactivated by the governing powers. Trust me, they are masters at mental and emotional warfare. And they are taking their cues right out of the history books of how to demoralize for control and oppression. We really need to watch how much we're buying into what they're wanting us to see, what they are projecting, their agendas. Know that there's a big political game going on behind the scenes. And a lot of what's going on is a distraction mechanism, so that we aren't paying attention to what is happening behind the curtain. So my guides are asking me to remind you to sense within your own energy. When you see global events popping up in the news, if you watch the news, which I would encourage you right now to take a break, ask yourself, is this another form of fear-mongering or gaslighting? Which brings me to my next point, gaslighting, a buzzword, right? Especially when we're talking about relationships. And it also applies here because these are our global brothers and sisters. So gaslighting is when someone says something to get a reaction, which is what all the leaders in the world are doing right now. They have become masters at it because they said, wear a mask, and everyone did. They said, get vaccinated, and everyone did. They're saying, jump, and we are. Compliance is the problem, not the solution. And it doesn't matter if you're in Russia, US, China, Canada, Iran, Palestine, Korea. They're all spewing things to get a reaction. Don't buy into it. Listen, if Putin really wanted to send out those nukes to Ukraine, he would have already done it. He wouldn't have announced it first and then waited for the reaction. As I have shared in other videos, I grew up on a farm. And one of my dad's favorite sayings to teach my brother and I how to diffuse tension was to say that the dog will stop chasing when the cow stops running. What happens is the dog becomes bored, right? And when they're no longer getting that reaction from the cow, they walk away. They find something else more interesting to do. So here's how I disempower gaslighting. Whether we're talking about in a relationship or with global leaders or with an employer or any other situation, I want you to picture yourself as a pilot light in a furnace or say a gas fireplace. If your light is already lit, nobody else can light it, right? But if your light isn't lit, that leaves you free game, open to being lit by anyone or anything. So I often coach my clients who say they're gaslighting me. And I always say, well, what did you do with your day to be in your center? Are you living a life that you love? And are you participating in doing the things that you love that light you up? Because let me tell you, when I'm coaching, running, hiking, sitting on a beach, hanging with my family, I am lit. And it's pretty hard to trigger me for any reason because I'm in my power zone. I'm doing what I love. This is me with my pilot light lit. But when I used to have, be part of that old cycle of self-sacrificing, self-compromising. So what happened was I'm already kind of aggravated. My light isn't lit and I wasn't in my power zone. I could be susceptible to being triggered by anyone else's comments or actions. So the same is true when we're talking about gaslighting in the political arena. Yep, they can try. And yes, there are people out there who will be activated and triggered by fear, by what they're saying and what the media shows, but that doesn't need to be you. This is how we control our emotions and our mental health, guys. You have to be the one who's on guard for you. And this is how you do it. If your light is lit, if you're doing what you love, even a little bit every day, you are in your power zone. You can stay in your center and take everything else with a grain of salt, deciding what do you want to believe. And here's the really important part of the gaslighting piece. It always triggers our fear response in one way or another. So scientists have shown when we're in fear mode, part of our brain actually goes offline. So in the back of your head here, you have your primal survival brain, which is your, fight, flight, freeze, or flee brain. And this is your animal instincts kicking in. The most evolved part of our human brain, though, sits right here in the front. And this is the part that governs logical and analytical thinking. So when you're in times of high stress or fear mode, what happens is your blood flow is restricted from this logical thinking brain, and survivally, it's focused on this back primal survival brain. Politicians and the mainstream know this, and it's called psychological warfare, and they use it to their advantage. They know that if they can activate the fear reaction, you will go fully into reaction mode, where you're going to want to do one of those things, right? Fight, flight, freeze, or flee. And none of those are powerful responses. They're all reactions. So they use this mechanism to be able to control your actions. So then you're only in reaction mode. You're not able to think logically or analytically to make clear decisions. Crazy, hey? So don't let yourself be pulled into the fear game. And it's crucially important that we stay in our centers, in our power zones. Now, point number 3 is that each person's energy is vitally important to the outcome of what occurs and how long this global disharmony and breakdown takes. Each one of us is here for a reason. At this pivotal time in history, we are at an incredibly important stage in humanity on this earth, and we can't keep looking to the external world to save us. Remember, the foundation's eroding. Faith in the government, organized religions, stock markets, education system, which was created to pump out factory workers, and the almighty dollar that seems to decrease in value so rapidly that we're at an all-time high for inflation. The main lesson here for everyone globally is to awaken to the realization that we, the people, are the creators of our personal world and, in the same way, our global world. It's time that we take responsibility for our energetic contribution. Listen, every thought you think, every word you speak, every action you take, you are contributing to the global energy one way or another, which means you can either aid by holding space for something better, or you can add more fuel to their fire by buying into the fear narrative. I really, really feel this is the key piece here. This is the core lesson of this time that we are in globally. We have to be diligent on what energy are we sending out. We don't want to disempower the Ukraine by seeing them as victims. We don't want to empower fear by buying into what we're hearing on mainstream media. And I want to warn you that if you do fall into fear, worry, doubt, you will be an energetic accomplice to the global leaders' agendas. The best thing that you can do for the people of Ukraine or anyone else who appears to be taken advantage of or victimized in your personal world or the global world is to see them as thriving. That's what Jesus did. That's how he healed. He saw not our illnesses. He looked at us and he knew the well-being. He knew it so powerfully and so clearly that the illness simply could not abide in his vibration. I want to add here that he was also alive at the beginning of the Piscean Age, performing miracles. And here we are, guys, another cycle, another fractal of time, being invited to be the miracle workers by seeing all people not as disempowered, broken, or suffering, but as whole, complete in their power. That's what he came to teach us. So I ask you, what station is your internal radio set at? Because you can't have it set on poverty, lack, suffering, stress, chaos, and trauma of the world and expect to hear and be jiving with the harmonic and rhythmic sounds of pure positive love energy. We all know that energy flows where our attention goes. In other words, our consciousness within us creates all consciousness out of the rest of the world. And we are being asked to take responsibility, to speak only truth, to think about things only that you desire to be the outcome, and to see life beyond this global shaking and awakening. Don't get stuck on the circumstances. What does not support the new era must fall away, and the beautiful souls who live in the Ukraine have signed up for this mission before they came to Earth. They put their hands up and said, I will go. And my life will be part of what is ushering in the new era. So they're not victims at all. They're willing to take their place in such a monumental way in our lifetime. I have a quote on my whiteboard that says, the only world I will accept is the one that I create. That needs to be the theme here. And you can steal it and put it on your fridge or wherever you want if you'd like. I'll repeat it again. The only world I'll create, or the only world I'll accept, is the one that I create. Don't be distracted, dismayed, or disempowered by the chaos. If we want a world where we are in our power in the future, we need to be creating that in our consciousness in the now. Because we all know that the seeds that we plant today is the fruits of what we will harvest tomorrow. We are just as responsible as the ones who are involved in this very organized crime by living in fear, worry, or shame. We're here, guys, to be the carriers of light, love, energy, to hold space for joy and freedom, for unity and truth that will be revealed after this shakeup. It's all part of the plan. We have to be very vigilant of the signals that we're sending out with our energetic vibrations. I want you to think of yourself as a spiritual first responder. You are not powerless with what's going on. No, that's what they want you to believe so that they can have everybody on their knees and usher in the new agreement that's being signed in May, where the World Health Organization will be able to override any government and make decisions on your health. Let me ask you this. If you don't have control over your health, what do you have? So we need to remain vigilant to where our conversations, our attention, and our focus is going. I want you to remind you again, this is a huge lesson to remind us all about our power, of the power that we have to create the world we desire through our energetic responses. Beauty will come out of ashes if we can raise the global consciousness to a level of joy, freedom, unity, and trust. So participate in those things. I'm asking you on behalf of my guides to use your power to create your personal world and the global world that you wish to live in, a life of free choice. Again, are you being an energetic accomplice or a spiritual first responder? There you are, my loves. So much food for thought. I would love to hear your positive comments or any questions that you may have below of how this has helped you to see it in another perspective. I've also already been given next week's topics, and it's another really insightful, eye-opening chat. So make sure that you're around to catch it. Like, subscribe, and share. And remember, all my replays from any of my lives that I do or any other events that I do, I've always saved them right here on my YouTube channel. Just look it up. And most importantly, remember, you are not powerless over what's going on in the world. In fact, you are, and only you, are the magnificent creator of your own life. Mwah.